Good day, and welcome to Encumbered Properties Red Alert. I am Rex Chinedu Agoawuike, your host. On Encumbered Properties Red Alert, we bring you updates on encumbered properties, disputed properties, or properties that are for any reason not available for sale. By listing your properties on our website, you save yourself the stress of any legal battle, and you also save the unsuspecting buyer from an unplanned legal battle. And guess what? All our services are free of charge. Let's get to the story already. Information available to us from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development warns the general public not to patronize anybody or Imo State government official who have taken it upon themselves to appropriate and reallocate federal government-owned landed properties within the state. A reliable source who confided in Encumberedproperties.com said the federal field officials in Imo State had notified the federal headquarters that unknown land grabbers suspected to be working in connivance with some state officials are fraudulently appropriating and reallocating the federal government-owned properties in the state. One of the landed properties the ministry mentioned is Plot GF13, Government Station Layout, number 6 Tetlo Road, Owerri, Imo State, Nigeria. You are by this notification advised not to buy such property from anyone to avoid losing your money. The ministry further warned that it will not hesitate to retrieve any property fraudulently appropriated or reallocated to anyone. This is one of the many reasons you are encouraged to always visit our website www.encumberedproperties.com to get real-time notifications about encumbered properties, disputed properties, or properties that are for any reason not available for sale. Follow us on our social media handles to stay updated. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications about disputed properties in your city of interest to avoid making an avoidable mistake. By sharing this video, you shall be saving someone from making a costly mistake by losing his or her money. So, my dear friend, share this video now to save a life. With Encumberedproperties.com, the safety of your real estate investment is assured. Do not pay for any property without visiting our channel or our website, www.encumberedproperties.com. It's time to seek an expert opinion on this issue. I wonder why a state government official would confidently encroach into federal government-owned landed properties to the extent of appropriating same to himself and reallocating to an innocent buyer. This calls for urgent attention. Please stay with us. I have a special guest in the building who will help us understand this story better. It's my pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you very much, Rex.
In case you're meeting him for the first time, he is Mr. Madueke Enwere, the founder in Encumberedproperties.com, a very senior police officer and a property lawyer. My pleasure once again, sir. Please, going straight to the questions, I would want to know, how can a federal government lay claim to a property situated in a state whereby the Land Use Act, has given a state government the power to own a land or any property in its domain?
That question is actually addressed by the same Land Use Act, in the sense that the Land Use Act preserves the right of the federal government to still retain any property that was in their name before the coming into effect of the Land Use Act itself. So the Land Use Act does not or did not diminish the right of the federal government to retain any property that inured or that is being managed or in the name of the federal government or any of its agencies.
Okay, looking at this case, the federal ministry warning people to stay away from its properties in Imo State. What if the said properties are not existing in the name of the federal ministry?
The question is, what could make such a property belonging to the federal government not to be found so in the Ministry of Lands of the said state?
If the federal ministry is accusing some state officials of, conniving with land grabbers to appropriate and reallocate, then there is a problem somewhere.
then it becomes very risky for any prospective buyer who relies on a search result from the State Ministry of Lands. If, for instance, it is true that some state officials are actually involved in this, what that could mean is it's possible that if you search, for instance, from the details you just gave, I listened to it. You talked about number 6 State Road, Owerri.
Right.
So if state officials are actually involved, something could actually be manipulated so that a prospective buyer may not see the land, this particular location, in the name of the federal government, thereby misleading an innocent buyer to believe that this property does not actually belong to the federal government or any of its agencies. That's where it becomes risky for you to, go ahead with any landed or property transaction by visiting the land bureau alone. By this token, it is advisable for anybody, before you go ahead and part with your money, after searching at the land bureau, you still go ahead and search at encumberedproperties.com.
Right.
Because for one reason or the other, you might not get the information you need from the land bureau.
Especially when manipulated by the same people.
Chances are, especially as the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is somehow indicting some state officials as being involved or being behind the appropriation and reallocation of federal government properties in Imo State. So you go ahead, check at the relevant land bureau, and also visit encumberedproperties.com. Somebody might have flagged the property, like the discussion we are having currently. If you are not privy to this discussion, you wouldn't know that number 6 Tetlow Road has been flagged, that nobody should buy from anybody whatsoever, that the property belongs to the federal government and the federal government is not selling.
Okay, from available information, this is not the first time it's happening. It has happened before, and the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has written to the state government to warn those perpetrators to desist from doing same, and they continued. I want to ask, what could lead to this official sabotage? It's just like somebody giving you something to hold on to while he returns. Then you turn around to appropriate the same property to yourself, then reallocate to somebody else before the return of the person who gave it to you. So I feel this is more like an intentional sabotage. What could lead to this?
Well, whoever that is behind this kind of property racketeering is actually maybe buying time, within the interim, to collect money from people who are not aware of this development. If the person is not privileged to see this video, for instance, the person wouldn't know. They will quickly collect the money and probably be waiting. The federal government, we don't see them coming to make use of this property in the nearest future. Sometimes they don't actually appropriate the entire property. They encroach 2 plots there, 3 plots there, and all that, and collect money from people who don't know. And any day the federal government or any of its agencies decides to make use of the property, you find out that the buyer, the end user who doesn't know or who didn't know, ends up losing the money, losing his property.
Could this be the reason why properties get demolished by federal government at some point?
Definitely part of the reasons. Because if, for instance, that number 6 Tetlow Road, the federal government has a particular use for it, going there, finding trespassers, building whatever they want, contrary to what the plan of the federal government is. Of course, they're bound to lose whatever they have built on the property. On a general note, if a trespasser goes and builds on a land not belonging to him or her, The law is he who owns the land owns what is in it. If the structure suits the purpose of the owner, he or she can leave the structure. Really? If the structure doesn't suit the purpose of the owner, whatever use the land is originally meant for, if it doesn't suit him or her, it goes down at no cost. And in this circumstance, you won't be talking about compensation.
I was going to ask you. Now, for instance, imagine unsuspecting victims already bought some plots from the land grabbers in Imo State. And all of a sudden, the federal ministry comes up with this demolition exercise. What becomes the fate of the unsuspecting victims that patronized the unknown land grabbers? Is there going to be any form of compensation for them from the federal government, or is it all about for future entirely?
Definitely, there will be no compensation. The issue of compensation arises where the person was legitimately in possession. Legitimately in possession in the sense that the person acquired a good title in the sense that it was transferred to him by the owner. Let's assume is the federal government, or let's assume that the said state officials that are located, the land actually belongs to the state government, and for any reason the state government or the federal government wants to make use of it for overriding public interest, the issue of compensation will arise. But if the person wasn't supposed to be at the site, at the plot, or at the property ab initio, there won't be any question of compensation. Of course, we should have been talking about trespass in the first place, because trespass is
an offense, huh?
Okay, yeah, it's a criminal offense here in the north. Then you can take civil action if someone has, down south, the civil action against whoever that has trespassed into the property or into your property is a tortious wrong. There is what we call tortious wrong. You can claim and recover damages for anyone who has trespassed into your property without your authorization, without your consent, without your approval. So the person is not generally entitled to any form of compensation. If anything could, accrue to the person is for the person to locate whoever that deceived him or her and sue the person to recover whatever he has paid over the property.
Sometimes it's always a long walk.
Of course, if you will be able to even trace whoever that, was responsible for selling the property to you in the first place. Most of these people who do this, they know the truth. And when they collect this kind of money, they disappear into the thing.
Right. Some of them are even at the verge of retirement. So they feel it's more like a settlement for them in the case of the state government officials being accused by the federal ministry.
No, if they still retire, in this kind of circumstance, this kind of fraud, time doesn't run against certain classes of crime. Like in this case, even if you're on retirement, you can still be called to answer to any criminal
charge against you.
Exactly.
Wow, it's been a sweat time like always with Mr. Madueke Enwere, the founder in Encumberedproperties.com, a very senior police officer and of course, a property lawyer. Thank you so much for doing justice to this.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My dear friend, would you like to get similar updates on encumbered properties, disputed properties, or properties that are for any reason not available for sale? Then, click on the subscribe icon to get real-time notifications on disputed properties. Remember, the safety of your real estate investment is our priority. Follow us on Instagram at Encumbered Properties Limited, Facebook at Encumbered Properties, or visit our website www.encumberedproperties.com. With Encumbered Properties, the safety of your real estate investment is assured. My name is Rex. Chinedu Agoawuike thanking you for watching. Till I come your way again, stay safe and stay out of troubled properties. Good day.